I finally found someone who can get that old equipment working.
Great! Who? I could just kiss him.
Plan it here, sweet thing.
There are spin-offs. And then there are spin-offs that walk into the room, take the lead character's chair, spin around dramatically, and say, "Relax, I've got this." It's the boldest move TV can make without literally changing the theme song mid-episode. Because replacing the hero isn't just a casting tweak, it's an identity crisis with a laugh track. Networks loved this gamble. You've already got a built-in audience, a familiar world, and at least one character viewers recognize. So why not peel that character off, drop them in a new setting, and hope the magic follows like a loyal golden retriever? Sometimes it does. Sometimes it stares at you, confused, and runs back to the original show. The tricky part is that audiences don't just watch a series for the premise. They watch for the gravitational pull of a lead character, the rhythm, the voice, the way one person makes everyone else funnier just by reacting. So when a spin-off replaces the original hero, whether it's a breakout side character, a fan favorite boss, or the "we need someone responsible in this cast" adult, the show has to answer one big question fast. What are we now? Tonight, we're counting down 9 spin-offs that completely replaced the original hero and got mixed results. Some became classics. Some lasted long enough to prove the concept worked. Sort of. And some felt like watching your favorite band without the lead singer, insisting it's actually more about the instruments now. We're starting at number 9 with a show that tried to keep most of the magic, but was missing one ingredient everyone noticed immediately. Then we climb all the way to 1, where the replacement didn't just survive, it became a gold standard. Let's count it down. 9. The Golden Palace, from the Golden Girls. There's a special kind of bravery in making a spin-off that says, "Don't worry, it's basically the same" show, while quietly removing one of the core pillars holding the whole thing up. The Golden Palace tries exactly that. Dorothy is gone, but Blanche, Rose, and Sophia are still here, and now they're running a hotel, which is honestly a great sitcom premise on paper. New guests every week, endless chaos, plenty of room for jokes, and a built-in excuse for random weirdos to wander in. So what's the problem? The problem is, you can feel the empty chair. Dorothy wasn't just another character. She was the straight shooter with the timing that kept everything snapping into place. She could take Blanche's vanity, Rose's innocence, Sophia's grenades from the hip, and turn it into a perfect rhythm of setup and punchline. Without her, the show has to redistribute the balance, and it never fully finds the same groove. To its credit, the series doesn't coast. It tries to evolve. It adds new faces, leans into the hotel format, and gives the remaining trio fresh dynamics to play with. But that's also the trap. When you change the setting, the structure, and the lead energy at the same time, you're basically asking viewers to accept a new show while pretending it's not a new show. And that's why the results feel mixed. It's not a disaster. It's not unwatchable. It's just that every so often, a scene lands and you think, "This is fun," and then you immediately think, "Yeah, but it's not that fun." Which brings us to a spin-off that did make the jump by shifting the focus to a familiar anchor. Only this time, the show didn't pretend it was the same thing. 8. The Facts of Life, from Different Strokes. If the Golden Palace shows how hard it is to keep the vibe without a key ingredient, The Facts of Life shows the opposite strategy. Don't cling to the old show. Use one familiar face as the bridge and build something new around them. In Different Strokes, you've got the headline, premise, and the household dynamic. But sitting in the middle of all that is Mrs. Garrett, the adult presence who feels like she belongs in the room even when the kids are bouncing off the walls. So the spin-off basically says, okay, what if she is the glue and everything else is brand new? That's the swap. The original hero energy of the parent show is gone, replaced with a totally different core, a boarding school setting, and a cast of girls with distinct personalities that can clash, bond, and rotate through a lot of life lesson storylines. Mrs. Garrett becomes the anchor point, the familiar face who makes the transition feel safe, while the show figures out what it wants to be. And for a while, it works because it's not trying to copy different strokes. It has its own lane. The tone can swing between silly and sincere. The conflicts feel more teen-focused, more social, more about identity and growing up. It's a different kind of comfort show, one that's less about a household and more about a tiny world where everyone knows everyone. The mixed results part comes from how much the show has to mutate to stay alive. Cast shifts, premise tweaks, tone adjustments. It's like the show keeps rearranging the furniture until it finds the best layout. And depending on where you drop into the run, it can feel either perfectly dialed in or like a cousin of itself. But here's the key. Even when it changes, the spin-off identity is real. It doesn't live in the shadow of the parent show. It grows into its own thing. Next up, another character leap that starts with huge momentum, and then learns the hard way that headlining is a totally different job. 7. Rhoda, from The Mary Tyler Moore Show. You can almost hear the pitch meeting for Rhoda. Okay, everyone loves the best friend. She's funny, she's sharp, she's got that energy. What if we just follow her? It's the classic spin-off temptation. Take the character who steals scenes, hand them the keys, and assume the audience will happily follow. And to be fair, Rhoda starts like it's about to prove the formula is easy. The swap is clean. Mary stays in her world, and Rhoda returns to New York, where she becomes the center of her own orbit. New setting, new supporting cast, new day-to-day problems. In theory, it's perfect, because Rhoda already has a voice. She's not a blank slate. She's not the neighbor who occasionally pops in. She's a fully formed personality with a point of view and a comedic rhythm. The early charm is that you're finally seeing Rhoda without being filtered through Mary's workplace and apartment life. She gets her own relationships, her own ambitions, her own frustrations, and the series does something smart. It makes the move feel motivated, like a real-life step, not a forced network trick. But here's where the mixed results creep in. Being a great supporting character doesn't automatically mean you can carry every scene. In The Parent Show, Rhoda's sarcasm and bite work like spice. Perfect in bursts, especially when she's bouncing off Mary. In her own show, that energy has to stretch into full meals, week after week. So you get seasons where the identity feels strong and confident, and others where it feels like the series is searching for its long-term engine. Not bad, not a failure, just a reminder that headlining requires different muscles. And if you think a friend becoming the star is a leap, wait until you see what happens when a neighbor becomes the main attraction. 6. The Jeffersons, from All in the Family. Jeffersons is the kind of spin-off that makes the whole concept look effortless, like the original show was just accidentally serving as a launch pad. The swap here is bold, but logical. All in the Family has a gravitational center, and it's Archie. But in that same universe, you've got George Jefferson, loud, ambitious, explosive, and absolutely not designed to stay a side character forever. So when the spin-off happens, the original hero isn't just replaced. He's left behind. The genius is that the show doesn't try to recreate the bunker household vibe. It pivots hard into a new premise. Upward mobility, a new building, new neighbors, and a main character who can generate conflict by simply walking into a room and deciding he's right about everything. George isn't the lovable guy. He's the engine. He's the spark. He's also, hilariously, his own worst enemy half the time, which makes the comedy feel active instead of comfortable, Why the results are mixed depends on what you mean. In terms of success and cultural footprint, it's a monster win. But the complicated part is that the spin-off's identity is still tied to its origin in people's heads. Even when it's clearly its own show, there's always that from the world of shadow hovering behind it. Some viewers love that connection. Others feel like it frames the series as a branch instead of a whole new tree. Still, if you want an example of a replacement hero who earns the spotlight by sheer force of personality, George Jefferson is basically the blueprint. He doesn't ask permission to be the main character. He declares it. Now, let's jump to a different kind of replacement. One where the lead swap isn't just a new star. It's a whole new genre shift wrapped in a familiar name. 5. Trapper John, MD, from the MASH universe. If you've ever watched a spin-off and thought, wait, this is the same character? Trapper John, MD is your moment. The swap here is less about swapping a lead inside the same vibe and more about taking a familiar name, fast-forwarding his life, and dropping him into a totally different TV machine. The Trapper from the MASH world is part of an ensemble. Rapid-fire humor, wartime pressure, a balance of comedy and emotion, and a very specific setting that defines how every joke and every serious beat lands. In Trapper John MD, you're dealing with a post-war doctor in a hospital drama format. The energy is different. The pacing is different. The emotional language is different. And the show asks you to accept that this is the natural evolution of the character, without giving you the parent show's lead hero energy to guide the way. That's what makes it such a fascinating replacement hero case. Instead of spinning off the main star, it spins off a major character and says, here's his next chapter. The original hero, Hawkeye's center of gravity role in the public imagination, is gone, and the series has to stand on the new lead's shoulders. The mixed results come from the identity gap. Plenty of viewers enjoyed it on its own terms, as a medical drama with a familiar hook, but fans expecting the tone and chemistry of the original world can feel like they're watching a different show wearing a borrowed name tag. In other words, successful enough to justify its existence, but weird enough that people still debate what it feels like a spin-off of. Next, we're moving to a franchise-style replacement, where the setting stays the same, the template stays the same, and the leads are swapped like the network is running a simulation. 4. Saved by the Bell, the new class, from Saved by the Bell. If spin-offs were food, Saved by the Bell, the new class would be the same recipe, new ingredients sequel your parents swear tastes identical. And you're sitting there like, I mean, it's fine, but it's not the same. The swap here is straightforward. Keep Bayside, keep the vibe, keep the formula, but replace the core teen cast that people actually imprinted on. This is the purest replacement hero experiment because it treats the original cast like the starter pack and the setting like the real brand. In theory, that makes sense. High school stories are evergreen. New kids means new romances, new rivalries, new schemes, new catchphrases waiting to happen. Plus, you can keep a familiar adult presence floating around to connect the dots. But nostalgia doesn't work like that. The original show isn't just a setting, it's a chemistry. It's the specific mix of personalities and how they bounce off each other. So the new series is stuck in a brutal comparison loop from day one. Every storyline becomes, is this the new version of that? Every character becomes, which original are they trying to echo? And even when an episode is perfectly entertaining, the audience brain keeps grading it against a memory, not a script. That's why the results feel mixed. It runs long enough to prove there was a market for more Bayside. It's not a quick, embarrassing flameout, but it rarely escapes the reputation of being the permanent understudy. Competent, sometimes fun, but always introduced with an asterisk. It's also a reminder that replacing the hero is easier when the new show isn't asking to be the old show. The new class is basically asking for permission to inherit someone else's locker. Up next, a spin-off that also changes the setting and focus, but does it with far more cultural impact and a stronger sense of purpose. 3. A Different World from The Cosby Show. A Different World starts as a classic spin-off move. Take a character connected to a mega hit, pull them into a new environment, and hope the audience follows. But what makes it a fascinating replacement hero case is that the show doesn't stay frozen in that initial setup. Over time, it becomes less about being the Cosby spin-off and more about being its own statement. The swap is real. You're no longer living in the Huxtable household rhythm, no longer anchored by the parent show's core hero energy. Instead, you're in a college setting, new cast dynamics, new social pressures, new kinds of stories. That setting alone creates a different flavor. It allows for more independence, more variety in conflicts, and more room to address bigger issues alongside comedy. And that's where the mixed results label can be tricky, because the show's strength is also its growing pains. Early on, the series is still figuring out its voice. It's finding the balance between humor, heart, and identity. As it evolves, it leans into themes that feel more grounded and culturally specific, and the show's impact becomes part of why people remember it so strongly. But with evolution comes whiplash. Some viewers love the later identity because it feels confident and meaningful. Others miss the earlier, lighter energy or feel the series becomes a different beast than what they tuned in for at the start. That split is exactly what mixed results means in the best way. Not bad, but divisive depending on what you came for. The bigger takeaway is that replacing the hero can work when the spinoff doesn't just borrow popularity, it builds a mission. It stops being extra episodes and becomes its own world with its own stakes. Next, we're heading into the spinoff that proves the concept can go horribly wrong. 2. Joanie Loves Chachi from Happy Days. On paper, Joanie Loves Chachi sounds like a slam dunk. Happy Days is huge. Joanie and Chachi are popular. The network probably looked at the couple and thought, people already like them. How hard can this be? And then the spinoff arrives and answers that question in the most brutally honest way possible. It can be very hard. The swap here is essentially a romance promotion. Instead of orbiting around the Fonz-led energy and the ensemble's comfort food vibe, the show tries to make Joanie and Chachi the engine. New setting, new premise, and suddenly the characters who were charming in supporting doses are responsible for carrying entire storylines, entire episodes, entire seasons. That's the trap. In the parent show, Joanie and Chachi benefit from contrast. They're part of a bigger ecosystem. Their scenes land because they're a change of pace, not the main course. But when the spin-off makes them the focus, the show has to manufacture stakes, comedy, and momentum around a dynamic that was originally designed to be a subplot. You can feel the strain in the concept. It wants to be sweet and romantic, but it also has to be funny, and it has to justify why this couple is more interesting than the world they came from. The result is a series that isn't totally without charm, but often feels like it's searching for the missing ingredient that made the original click. That's why it's remembered as mixed, in the harshest way, less underrated gem, more cautionary tale. It's the spin-off that proves popularity doesn't automatically convert into a sustainable premise. But don't worry, we're ending on the exact opposite. A spin-off that not only replaced the hero, it became the kind of show people point to when they say, okay, fine, sometimes the spin-off is actually better. 1. Frasier from Cheers. If spin-offs had a Hall of Fame, Frasier would be the one with the velvet rope, the spotlight, and the smug little plaque that says, yes, I really pulled this off. Because the swap here isn't subtle. Cheers is an iconic ensemble, and the gravitational center is the bar itself. The place, the people, the vibe. Frasier leaves all of that behind and says, "We're doing something different now. Follow me." And somehow it works. The genius is that Frasier doesn't try to be Cheers in a new outfit. It builds a new engine. A radio psychiatrist with a complicated personal life. A working-class dad who cuts through his pretension like a pair of scissors. A brother who's basically pretension with legs. And a supporting cast designed to collide in ways that feel fresh. The humor shifts too. It becomes sharper, more verbal, more character-driven in a different way. Less hangout energy, more intricate comedic timing. This is what replacing the hero looks like when it's done right. The spin-off understands that audiences didn't just like Frasier because he existed. They liked him because he had layers. The show then adds new layers, new relationships, new routines, new spaces, new conflicts that aren't dependent on who he used to drink with. Are the results mixed? Only in the sense that not everyone prefers this style. Some people will always love the warmth of the bar more than the elegance of the apartment. But as a replacement hero spin-off, it's basically the gold standard. It doesn't feel like a copy. It feels like a reinvention. And that's the real lesson of the whole countdown. Replacing the lead can work if the new show knows what it is and stops asking to be what it isn't. Conclusion. So, what did we learn from 9 heroic replacements and a whole lot of television bravery? Replacing the original lead isn't automatically a bad idea. It's just an idea that demands a price. The price is identity. The spin-off has to earn the right to exist on its own terms, not just cash checks written by the parent show's popularity. When it works, when it really works, it's because the new show builds a new engine. Frasier doesn't try to recreate a bar. The Jeffersons doesn't try to recreate the bunkers. Even the Facts of Life succeeds because it uses one familiar anchor and then commits to becoming something else. The best replacement hero spin-offs understand a simple truth. You can borrow an audience, but you can't borrow a soul. And when it doesn't work, it's usually because the show stays trapped in comparison mode. Saved by the Bell. The new class can be perfectly watchable, but it's constantly graded against a memory. Joanie Loves Chachi is the cautionary tale where popularity didn't translate into a full premise. And The Golden Palace proves that sometimes you can keep most of the ingredients and still end up with a dish that tastes slightly off. But honestly, that's what makes this era of TV so fun to revisit. Networks took wild swings. Sometimes they struck gold. Sometimes they struck, well, that sure aired. And even the messy ones are interesting because they reveal what audiences actually connect to. Not just the premise, not just the setting, but the chemistry, the rhythm. The one person who makes the whole machine purr. Now I've got to ask you, which spin-off replacement lead did you actually prefer over the original? And which one felt like TV's most awkward new boss introduction? Drop your pick in the comments. And if you want a part 2, you know what to do.